Hi, I'm Andrea and welcome to Productive C#. In this video, I want to show you how you can access a REST API using C#. In particular, I'd like you to make a call, an HTTP GET request to a GitHub REST API. So let's have a look here. I have the GitHub developer portal open and I'm looking at the projects API. I'd like to see a list of all the projects of a particular organization. Let's say list organization projects. The way to get all the projects is to do a GET request using api.github.com/orgs, then the name of the organization and then projects. So we want to try to do that using C#. So let's go to Visual Studio. You just need a simple class called HTTP client in order to be able to do HTTP request in .NET. So first of all, you need to create an instance of this class. And this class implements IDisposable, so you should use a using statement in order to create this class. HTTP client. There we go. One of the important properties you want to set in the HTTP client is the base URL, the base address. The base address is basically the address where your API sits. In this case, it's the GitHub endpoint. It is api.github.com. Right? So now, all the time you want to do a request, you don't need to specify the base address. You just need to specify everything else in the URI. Okay. If you want to do a request, you need to do a HTTP client.getAsync. Okay, and then you specify the exact the relative URL that you want to call. Let's say we want to get all the projects from Microsoft. So I set Microsoft and you're gonna say repos. Okay, so this is as an async code. As you can see, I'm using async main, and I need to use await in order to make this call. There we go. So now this line of code is basically doing the HTTP GET request under the covers, and you get a response. The response is of type HTTP response message. Then you can do another operation to get the actual content from the response. Response.content .read string async. There we go, and you actually get the response as a string. Right line, content. There we go. Okay, let me run this code and see what happens. So now Visual Studio is building the project. This is actually a .NET Core 2.1 project. What you get is, actually the request works. You get a response from GitHub saying that the request is forbidden by administrative rules. And you need to specify a user agent header in order to be able to call this API. So let's do that. In order to do that, you need to use the HTTP client, and then you can set the default request headers, and you can add an header. You need to specify the name of the header. In this case, we want to set the user agent, and then you can set the user agent as you want. In our case, let's say Productive C#. There we go. If I run it, now I get the list of projects back. So this is a massive JSON file that contains all the projects. As you can see, there is an ID, a node ID, the name of the project, and so on. Okay, you can also print, if you want, the status code. So the response contains the status code. If you're interested, this is just an enum. You can cast this to an int if you want to actually see. Of course, this is going to be at 200 because the request works, and you get the first 25 projects. They say this is at 200. Okay, so as you can see, it's fairly easy to check. Of course, this is JSON. If you want, you can use a library called the Newtonsoft JSON to actually parse the content and into an object, into a JSON object, so that you can actually do some operation with it. So you need to do JSON convert dot deserialized object and you pass your content, and you will get a JSON object. So if I print this JSON object, you will see a pretty print of this JSON. And if you want, you can even do deserialize into an object that you create for an easy access. But that's obviously beyond the purpose of this video. Another fairly useful method in the response is successful status code, and this is true when the response is at 200 or in the range of 200 as a status code. So in this case, you want to say you want to do that only if the operation is successful, right? And as you can see, this still works. Okay, so this is pretty much how you can do an HTTP GET request using C#. You need to use the HTTP client class, provide a base address, then you can just use the getAsync method in order to make a GET request, and then you do a read as string async in order to get the response back, and then you can, if you want, use additional libraries to parse the JSON that is returned from the server and do additional operations. Of course, the HTTP client also provide the other operation like post, put, all the other HTTP verbs. So HTTP class is actually the class you need in order to do HTTP request in C#, and it's fairly easy to use. Thank you very much for watching.